My name is Nina Cara and I'm here today to present the Data Hazards Project, which is jointly run by myself. I'm a PhD student at the MRC IEU, and Dr. Natalie Zelenka, who's a data scientist at the Gene Golding Institute. The aims of the Data Hazard Project are essentially to improve the quality of ethical consideration in data science, and we want to do that through a shared vocabulary of ethical issues that people can go to help prompt them to think about what difficult ethical considerations they might want to bring into their project. And we call these data hazards, and I'll talk about those in a moment. As part of this project, we want to encourage people to bring together and respect diverse and interdisciplinary viewpoints, because we strongly believe that ethics is something that we really need to do as a collective, and not something that an individual person working on a project can effectively do alone without bringing in other views. We also want the project to be something as a whole that's developed with an open source and collaborative ethos. And that means that we want people to be able to have their say on what the ethical considerations are that should be included, how these should be considered as part of data science projects, and also for them to grow as time goes on, because we might encounter more and more issues, or other issues may have new solutions that we haven't thought about, and people can add those as time goes on. Now, this project is something that we developed as an offshoot of a fortnightly discussion group about ethics called Data Ethics Club, and if you're interested in that, then you can go to our website for that as well. So why is it important that we do something like this in data science? And I think most people now may have heard about various scandals that involve data science and how it's caused harm, but the variety is really quite astounding in terms of how data science affects our lives and the potential that it can have to cause harm if we don't carefully think about how to prevent it. For example, self-driving cars can have direct impact on people's lives. We can use data sets that have racial bias in them and that result in increased discrimination, or discrimination being replayed that we would want or hope that our tools are not reinforcing. And also just to say that data science can affect your life even if you've never even picked up a computer or a phone, because data science has been used in government to make decisions. It's been used potentially even just to decide how resources are allocated in your local area. And all of these things are done with excellent intentions and the hope that they can help, but we also just need to make sure that we're thinking early on in these projects how we can prevent harm. And we can see how data science can be incredibly useful to us, and the things that it could achieve for us as a general humanity, we really need to make the most of it, but we just want to make sure that we're doing it safely. So what are these data hazard labels? This is an image that kind of describes what they're made up of, and you'll notice that it's quite similar to a Koch chemical hazard. That is intentional, and it's because we want people to think of them in the same way, and that's that a chemical hazard tells you what risks you're taking on by using a certain tool or a certain chemical. They don't tell you that you shouldn't use it at all, but they tell you what the safe parameters are for its use, and we think that's a really healthy way to look at data science, because as we said, there's no use saying that we shouldn't use data science at all. It's incredibly useful to us, but we need to just make sure that we're thinking about how to use it safely. And so each label has an image, a title and description. It has examples of situations where it might have played out in the real world, and it also has the safety precautions, which tell you how you could mitigate potential harm from this label. And so how are we developing this project and how does it work? The main thing is the data hazards themselves, which we've been developing over the last year. And as part of that, we've been doing reflective workshops. And those workshops are with the aim of researchers coming in and presenting their project to a diverse group of people. So they may be academics from different disciplines, or they may be people who don't necessarily do research day to day. And those reflective workshops give people an opportunity to hear others' views on their project and what may or may not be ethical as part of it. And having a diverse range of views doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is right or wrong, but it just gives the researcher something new to consider that they might not have thought of themselves. Similarly, we are developing teaching materials along with lecturers at the University of Bristol and others, and also self-reflective activities if you'd just like to do this for your own project and think quietly about how these different hazards might apply. We've been getting feedback on the hazards themselves by using these workshops and on a workshop format. So we've been asking people if they think the hazards cover enough of the ethical considerations that we need to cover. and inviting people to contribute to the project by suggesting new labels or adding examples or safety precautions to the existing ones. As part of this, we've also been trying to test whether using the data hazards actually increases people's awareness of ethical issues, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a moment. So this is the data hazards website. Just to illustrate how it works, we have a front page which tells you a bit about the project, and we also have a timeline because we think it's good to let people know what we're up to and what our aims are for what we're trying to achieve in the next coming months and what we have achieved already. The labels themselves have their own page where you can scroll through and see each one. So for example, lacks community involvement. We can see that it has its picture, description, examples, and also the safety precautions, which in this case might be to consider co-production of research if you're researching a community and you haven't got any input from that community about whether or not they are interested in the technology that you're designing. The materials that we've designed are all available on our website as well, including timelines and example slides that people can use. And we also have started to collect examples of how other people have used them, so to give people ideas of how they might want to use them in their own work. And in order to contribute to the project, we've got really clear contribution guidelines to make sure it's really easy for people to contribute. And you can do that in lots of different ways. That might be through email, it might be on GitHub, depending on what people are most comfortable with. And we also keep a record of all of our contributors, because we think that's a really important way to acknowledge that this is a collaborative group project that anybody can get on board with. And so from our website you can go to our GitHub repository, which is a place where all of the changes that we make are recorded, and they're recorded through commits, so you can see every change that has been made to the hazards and what we've been doing. And it's also a place where people can get involved in the project. So for example, this is a conversation that we were having about adding a new feature, and someone who's come to a workshop has decided to help us do that by donating their web skills, which has been brilliant. From our website you can also go to our Open Science Framework page, where you can see things like our pre-registration, which is all made available online. And so far we have found that actually running the workshops is a good way to increase people's awareness. Most people select more hazards for a project after a discussion than before. And we've also had really encouraging feedback from people who've attended our workshops that they found it useful, and they didn't think they'd change their mind, but they did, and that the workshops are a really nice way to learn more about ethics. And so that's the Data Hazards project as it is right now. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to take any questions.